Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today, we'll see how in Jetpack Compose you can lay a number of items or maybe a list of items. So, if you remember, and if you come from Android View world where we used to have a widget called the Cycler View, which was there to build layouts which were similar to list and can have a number of items and also a mechanism in which there is like it just holds the number of visible items only, and then it has some view caching mechanism, and then it reuses those views so that you can render as many as items you want without hampering or maybe requiring a lot of or ton of memory. So in recycler view, we when we used it, it had like quite a few moving parts, such as it needed a data set and then it needed an adapter to inflate your view using some sort of a mechanism in which we used to have on bind view holder on an adapter which basically had a way by which we can tell like, how you want to inflate a particular view at a particular index with what item. And maybe someday you might also use diffutil to check how much of data is being changed from the past to now, and then you can refresh that particular index based upon that change. Now, with Jetpack Compose introduction and it's now stable, a lot of folks are using it. So I expect with this video, I expect the viewers to have a brief or a basic idea of what Compose is, and I'll just go through a very basic code base, very basic code. So it's a simple code that comes with Android Studio when you create a template. So I have just created this comment here just to show you how it, like what Recycler view is and what it had. So I can just remove it further down. So now let's say that I wanted to create a list of string, like let's just list of items. Let's say I'll just have a lazy column, which expects me to pass into a lazy list scope. So what is a lazy list scope? So whenever you want to introduce an item, you cannot do just like I can just paste in there is hello, and I cannot just expect the view to be laid out. So I have to push it into an item if it's a single item. Then I'll just paste in hello and I'll run it again, and we'll see that I'll have hello written over there. Now let's say that I wanted to make a list of hellos, so I'll just have for loop in which I'll have I in 1 to 100, maybe 1,000, and I'll say text and I'll show $I. If you just say the number of the index which we are upon. Now, if I run it, I'll see 100 of items being 1,000 of items being rendered onto the view. So, if it was synthetic view, you must have used it in the past. You will see that we have an adapter. And we have to like create a custom class which extends from adapter inside the view adapter in which we have to pass a view holder. And then we will have to specify how many items that we want to introduce via passing it into item count overridden method. Then we will have like count create view holder, which will specify how do you want to create the instance of a particular item at that particular index. Then we had that on bind view holder in which whenever that item is visible, we will be binding that particular view to this particular data item or the list of items. Now, with this, it changes the whole game. Now, this is the power of the Compose. So, Compose is not just a UI framework. So, if you talk about Jetpack Compose in Android world, it's more or less a framework which we are using for UI purposes, but it's much more than that. It's a complex machine which expects a state. On that state change, it renders out a graph or a tree-based structure. So consider this as like these are the leaf nodes, and there is a state change, and whenever that state changes, it re-renders a particular node into the graph or the tree. So now, so this is the basic list of items that we are introducing. We are rendering here. Now, I also wanted to show you how it works in the Flutter world. So I just like to show a very brief or a very basic influence of how regulatory UI is not a similar concept across different frameworks, because in general we might just have a different component named after something else or may have a different named component, but in return the paradigm itself is kind of common between all the frameworks which we use. So let me just show you where I have that in project. Interesting. Let me just open it up. Okay, it's there. So this is the Flutter project that we have. I'll remove everything that we have that we don't use. We don't want to use it. So we just have this center aligned, and we don't want to even have the center here. So we'll just have a list view which expects a builder with a context. So in Compose, we didn't have a builder. We just had curly braces and we just can lay out the items. So in Compose world, what we have is a list item scope in which we have to define an item into a list item scope, which are being passed via a pretty self-explanatory or defined DSLs. So if I go into Studio again and I'll see that this item is a construct which is like a lazy item scope which is internal composable, which expects the content. Now, if I go to the lazy data scope and I see the content, it's type of lazy list scope. It's not a composable. It's a list lazy list scope. So, in the Flutter world, we don't have to specify any of that item or items maybe. So, if I want to render one item in here, let's say that I wanted to just show one item. So, what I can do is it expects me a builder. Give me a second. Give me a second. Maybe something has changed. Expect me to, okay, sorry, I'm going into a wrong construct. So I can have like a children directly here, and I can have list of items. So I'll have like a text, and I'll just say hello world. Now this list will just be a simple column, but rather a scrollable column. So column is something which lays out the item in vertical fashion. But this list will not have caching mechanism or any other thing that comes in research that you pre-built. And if I run this, I hope this is already running. I can just pick it up, or maybe it will just crash. But I think it will run. Let's just see. But maybe I can do something. Let's do. I don't have multiple features. Just hide the data from here. So now Flutter app is launched. You will see that we just have one item. Now, if I wanted to just showcase an n number of items, so just a single item, I cannot just do text and do hello world like we did into our Flutter app. We always have to put this into an item or items if you have multiple items. So I just have one item, then I'll just put hello here. Um, I run it again, then I see that the one is rendered. But now, let's say that I want in Flutter, if I had the same kind of function that I want to show n number of items. So what I can do is I can use ListView.builder, which will have like an item builder which expects context and index. And sorry, it might just expect us an index here. It might not be the context. And then number count, the count is let's say 1000. Let's context will be the next argument. I guess. Yeah. And we can return text with index. So this is something similar that I can do the same thing into the compose one. Let's run it again and we'll see how it looks. Different one. Okay, this is the app. Let me run it again. So you see that how much easier it is to um, create UIs, and in also it's very easy to kind of have uh, okay. So first part was context and second was index, which I wrote correctly, but I'm not sure why it did work the first way, the first try. So you see the number of items. Now let's go back to our proposed app. Let's kill this set review from Flutter. Now let's close that screen copy as well. We just are onto the same page. So let's say that you wanted to build something much complex. So let's just construct our data set first. Let's say that I had a data class. It will have an ID, which is an integer type. It will be a val, so it is immutable. And let's say that it's a list of students, list of folks. So it will be a name of student. This will be data string. And let's say class. This will be well, class is reserved. So we will have to choose a different set or variable name maybe. It could be it could be. So the most difficult task is to name your variables, and that's what I'm struggling with. So level maybe I'm at level 8 or something. It's level 8, and then because I don't have practical links, so I will have just a color box. This will be color and class color maybe. Okay, let's just have it a background color. I don't want to have the racial thing into this picture, and I'll have color. Okay, so pretty neat test structure, which will store some student data and will display the rest of the students. Now, what do we want here? I'll just name it as student. So this is our data ruler. Now, let's just create a list of data sets. So I'll create, uh, well, S1 student. I'll have ID 1, name as John. Okay, John Wick. And let's say level is 100 because you know John Wick. John Wick is John Wick. And I'll have color dark, maybe the dark gray or maybe gray because you know the man. And I'll have this list of items. Two, three. So you can just press Command D or Windows Control D maybe in Windows, and it will just duplicate the line that you are upon. So this is the list of 8 students. I'll have ID 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's two here. So John Wick, what else I should name? Maybe Rihanna. I'm not sure. I'm listening to her. But yeah. And maybe Aditya. Let's do Batman, Mark, Sunil. I'm just putting in some random names here. And let's say, what else? Siddhant, maybe that's a good name. And let's do one more, and let's do Rihanna is at 12, Aditya is at 976, Uthman is at 100 because you know the man. Mark is Mark, Sunil is Sunil, so maybe 34. John is like 1, Tom is like 66, and Rihanna is, let's say, purple, let's say pink. Then what I think it's strange. Red, cyan, green, black, yellow. We have some more amazing colors. Magenta is good, and let's say black again. So this is the list right that we have, and let's just well, items equals to list of S1, S2, S3, S4, S5, S6, S7, and S8. I don't think it's needed here. I'm sure why it's needed. Okay, let me just pull it from here to here, and this will all work because the initialization comes after. Website wasn't working. Now we have these students and we have these items. And students. So let's say that we have these 8 students, which are very brilliant and with all these different levels. Now, in compose one, let's say that we want to render all these students. So what are our options? So first option is to have the items construct, which will expect us count. So maybe you can just specify student start size, and then it will have uh, this index thing for us, and we can just now let's say I want to make a card. Okay, let's make another composable. It will be a function student ID card, student ID card, which expects well student student, and we'll just do the card and this card. So now what I want is I want this card to have a global padding, like a padding which is from the root view. So if I want to draw this someplace like that, let's just see. We have a list in which we have a card. This card has padding of 16 dp from all the sides, top, bottom, right corner, right and left. So I'll have a modifier. Modifier are like modifiers. So as they do what the name, this do what its name is. So it will give me a padding 16 of dp. This is like these are like the modifiers which can modify your view and do very specific things in that particular order. So let's say that I give a padding, then this will have a padding of 60 from the outer view. Now I'll have a card. And this card, what I want to have is I want to lay down a card view which has, let's say that just for now, let's say just a column. Now what I want is I also want this to have full max width so that it fills the entire width of the screen. So if I haven't specified any size, it will grow as per the content goes inside it. So I'll have a text view which shows the student name, text, student.id. Now we have the ID here, and we're done. So let's just do it first, and then we'll add more data here. Now, what does my student card expect? It expects a student, so we'll have students, and we'll pass a single student for that particular index. Now, if I run this program, what we'll see is that we have the list of items, which is John, Rihanna, Stan, Pavitya, Stan, Mark, and John. So we got our data here. Now, you see that the ID1, John Wick, they are like, it has the outer padding. Let me just, okay, let me just change the background color. Let me just change the background color to some gray color maybe, so that you can see the shadows. Okay, now you see the cards are here. Now, because gray is kind of similar to shadows, we might not see the shadows, but we just change to black so we can see the shadows. Because black will be not the color. And white is fine. I just increase the. I guess if you see the bottom card, it will have like a good amount of depth, which is like similar mechanism in which the old newspaper we used to work with card, and that's how cards and height of the view and the shadow work in parallel. If you start scrolling it up, you will see that shadow kind of diminishes down. So it's a very basic card. So if you go to the first card, you see that ID and John Wick, it does not have any padding. But our art of view has a padding now. If I want to specify the padding for my column, so I will have modifier, which is modifier dot padding, which is 16 dB. So my card internally, my column will have a padding from the outside, and now you can see that my ID and John Wick has a good amount of padding. And now I also want to have a divider so that our student cell is properly divided by some sort of a line. So you see that this is the line which comes to every card. So now we all the views are differentiated by using a single stroke of line. And now let's give an elevation as well. Okay, we have to be into the card. Card has an elevation. We can just pass an elevation directly. So we'll just go to the after modifier. We'll have elevation. I'll pass 8 dp. We will have 8 dp of elevation. So it kind of looks like a card that is elevated. Now you see that perfect. And as soon as you go down a bit, the shadow and elevation looks more down there. And if you go up, you see the shadows are not that dark, and the card does not look up that much elevated. That just effect that comes from the material itself. Now you see that we have a card. Now, assuming that we want to specify some sort of a color. And by color, what I mean is that whatever the color we have for the student, we should be having that. But because we also have some sort of a black color in here, which will be like contradicting with the text color. So instead of having just a column, what I'll have is a row. In a row, we can align or we can arrange the items into horizontal manner. So I'll import the row and I'll have first item as a box. Box is just a container which can hold more items into it or nothing into it. So I'll have a box just to show a color and maybe a surface. Okay, let's just use surface because we don't need a stack kind of a system. So box is to stack items. So in box you put things like you put into a stack and the topmost item is onto the top and everything else goes down to it. So let's say that make a surface. Surface color should be student dot color, background color, and modifier is equals to modifier dot size, modifier dot size, and size maybe 80 dp. Now we have a surface and a background color, and surface is nothing in this empty construct. We do not have anything for us, and then we can have our column. Now let me re-indent it. Now let's run it again. Let's see what does it show us. Now you see that we have the colors and respective data that we wanted to have into this particular column. Now you see that how much easier it is to render these items into your list view in Jetpack Compose. So this is all for this video, and like I wanted to cover more, but I'm not sure how much of an advance and how much of lengthy that video will be. So I'll rather push into very smaller videos and then maybe do a playlist or maybe do a series of videos in which we will start from basic compose, then we can go towards a full-fledged app, or maybe just create some sort of a capstone kind of project and we can move ahead. So there are like there's a lot of learning curve in Jetpack Compose because there are few concepts because when we come from a world where we used to have view-based mechanism in which we had an XML and we can see the layout here and there, and then we can always like go into Stack Overflow and figure it out like what's wrong with what, and we can just construct the view according to that. But when it comes to Compose and declarative UI, for a few developers or maybe a lot of developers, it might be a new concept which the developers who didn't come from the background of Flutter or maybe just the Compose is kind of new. But when you have seen Flutter, Swift UI, or maybe React Native, it is very easier to hook up onto and it is very easier to build apps on. As of now, I think it's pretty stable to build some apps, but there are a lot of bugs and there are a lot of problems with accessibility and other components into the Compose world. So they are being addressed and folks are developing on it on and on. So let's see like what video I create next. I'll just write up some sort of section or maybe a list of items or maybe a to-do list in which I'll boil down all the pain points that I've seen in the past and maybe just build some videos around that. Let me know in the comments what sort of videos would I be making in. I'll be more than happy to take your feedback and take your guys' feedback and make something up on it and maybe address those things. See you around.